It's that time of the year, opening day eve. We have opening day in the MLB tomorrow. And so today we're going to talk about some season long props that we like and season long futures bets and all that. So we'll start off with Korea talking about some of the things that he has. So we'll start off with his prize picks entry that I will pull up. So we have that right here. So, Korea, if you just kind of want to, I guess, touch on each prop individually and talk about what you like about it.
Yeah. So first, well, when I got it, it was less. So I'm doing trade turnover over his home run total. When I got it, it was at 19 and a half. So it's already grown. Well, and I got it all the way back in like 11 days ago, like March 18th, and then obviously his WBC performance happened where he was, obviously almost Captain America, and then now it's already at 22 and a half. So you can just see like how much it's grown in the 11 days from when I got it versus what it is now. So that's just a sign that that's going to hit for me. 19 and a half seems like a great number for Trey Turner. He's been really hitting the ball well, and he's going to go to a more hitter friendly park in Citizens Bank now this year. And obviously he's going to be the meat of the lineup now. Obviously, now that Rhys Hoskins for the Phillies is out for the whole year, and Harper is still not going to be back for a little while. This gives Trey Turner to really be like an anchor for this Philly lineup. So that's why I have Trey Turner over his home runs. I've just always kind of liked that prop. When I saw it, I just thought, ever since he was, I mean, I got it before, like, obviously it was before his performance in Miami, but when I was watching him play at the WBCR, you remember while we were watching his game against Canada, whether or his game against Colombia, or especially his game against Venezuela where he just was going off. I mean, you can tell that he was already in like almost not mid-season form, but like pretty good form for a shortstop, which is who is more contact heavy. That's always the thing with Trey Turner. He's always been prioritized as someone who likes to get on base because of his speed, and he is one of the fastest shortstops in baseball. And now you put him on a home run friendly lineup with, when they're healthy, obviously, unfortunately, Rhys Hoskins, who's out for the year, but Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Boehm when he can get hot, Bryson Stott when he can get hot. Philly has those guys, and I feel like Trey Turner just adds the perfect element. They signed him for so long, so I kind of feel like this is definitely a good investment. I definitely had to hammer over him his home run total. When I got it, it was at 19 and a half, but it's already at 22 and a half already, so you can tell like that is a sign that saying that, yeah, he's definitely going to hit over 20. Go down to the next Woodruff, and I liked him. They seem high for a two, but for my this Brewers team's very top heavy in terms of the rotation, because it goes Burns and Woodruff. After that, it kind of goes Peralta, which is all. It's not great. It's not amazing. It's decent. Also on, well, obviously I don't know how much of a role it could play in, but everything going on with Corbin Burns' situation right now with arbitration, and him wanting more money, but Milwaukee doesn't want to pay him that much money. I've seen a lot of people saying that the Brewers could sell maybe at the trade deadline. That could be like interesting take, just because, say the Brewers are having a down year, obviously, and, they didn't get that much better offensively. Obviously, that was one of their problems. They brought in Jesse Winker, obviously, via the trade with the Mariners, and, we've seen we've seen in the past the highlights of Jesse Winker, and we've seen the lowlights of Jesse Winker. And then they also brought in USA Canadian legend Abraham Toro. And how he cashed my parlay when I was in Arizona. So sorry, Ari, but that was a great day for me. That was a great day. I feel like this Milwaukee team is very top heavy in the rotation, and even with a strong bullpen, with guys like Devin Williams in there, and it was Taylor Waters. Now he's on San Francisco, but when they had Hader, and they still have a deep rotation in terms of the bullpen, and the bats are decent, but I feel like Brandon Woodruff, he's on some teams right now, honestly, just because of his situation behind being behind Corbin Burns, who's a top five, who arguably is a top five pitcher in baseball. But I feel like that's a safe number for Brandon Woodruff. I just liked the fact that his Ks were, kind of near the 190 range, because he's always been consistently hitting over that. So I definitely thought that was a smart play on that one, and I definitely had to cash it. It's still at the same, so no huge change over there. Next, I had Corey Seager, and this one was a really, really interesting one for me. I had Corey Seager over Hits, obviously, division rival, and yes, it's just for money, people. It's nothing personal, but I feel like when you talk about the shift, right, there's consistently one person, right, who was affected the most, and it's 100% Corey Seager. Obviously, now that the shift is banned in baseball, and it has to be, the shortstop has to be on the right side of the diamond, then the left side of the diamond for the second baseman. That opens the door for a lot of base hits to come Corey Seager's way. And it was because of that heavy shift where he had, a second baseman in right field, and a shortstop playing almost halfway up the diamond, and third base playing short. Because of that shift, it was such a heavy shift that it pretty much screwed him over. So that's why I like Corey Seager's hits. That's definitely a great total for him. Yes, you can consider his year a down year in Texas, but he's still one of the better shortstops in baseball, and he was hitting the ball great near the end of the season. I personally thought that this was a pretty good steal for someone who was really affected with the shift. Cyrus, I mean, who doesn't love a good Nerfy, right? Who doesn't love a good Nerfy? I mean, Nerfy. I think they should have them up. I mean, I'm pretty sure we can get into those in a little bit, but I feel like Corey Seager, that's a solid play for him, just because he had a down year. And then we go to the next guy. Speaking of down years, Marcus Semien. I got Ari. I call this the $1 billion infield because of how much I got paid. I got the $1 billion infield, and they're over hits. I feel like if one guy, if one guy had a down year, the other guy had another down year, right? Marcus Semien, he was one of the best second basemen in baseball. He still is one of the best second basemen in baseball, but he definitely considerably had a down year. And I mean, it's not because of the shift or anything. It was just a down year. It happens in baseball, but I feel like 153 is a good number for a very contact hitter in Marcus Semien. He's definitely going to be someone who gets on base. He's going to be someone who, can drive in runs. And he always has been that guy, for, when he was in Toronto and Oakland. But now, he signed that large contract with Texas now. And I feel like that's a solid play from him. being alongside Corey Seager, they are the offense, right? Those two alongside Nathaniel Lowe, who is a considerably better bat than he is a fielder. And then, the outfield, which had Adolis Garcia, and, they still have Josh Jung, I believe, back behind the plate. I feel like those two are definitely the meat and potatoes of the lineup. Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, right? They're going to be the ones driving in the most runs. They're going to be the ones pretty much contributing to most of the runs scored throughout the season, I believe. And I feel like those are good, solid totals for them. I believe they're going to hit those easily this year just because of, kind of not the expectations, but the belief that both of these two are going to have good years, considering one was screwed over due to the shift and one just had a down year with some injuries riddled up as well. So I feel like that's a solid one. The next one, is a personal favorite of mine, obviously, Ari, La Piedra, Luis Castillo. Look, I'm just going to say this now, and I know people are going to get mad at it because they're going to say, oh, you're a homer. I don't care. Luis Castillo is a dark horse for the Cy Young this year. Let's just get that out there. He definitely is. He is a dark horse. He was the 2 last year, but when he came to Seattle for half of the season, including the postseason, then became the 1 in the postseason. We already knew he was going to be the 1. He has improved from where he was in Cincinnati to now. It's not like he regressed in Seattle. He's going to have a great season. He's starting tomorrow, Ari. He is starting tomorrow, right? He's the Mariners ace. And I feel like I can say this probably, he has been the best Mariners ace since Felix Hernandez. Like, let's be real here. Marco Gonzalez opening day starter, please get that out of here. And yes, we had Robbie Ray. I believe that was for last year, but definitely Luis Castillo and his raw ability, I feel like it's just considerably a lot better, right? And I feel like he's definitely going to have a fantastic season on the mound. 183.5 is great for him. I think he's going to hit that over. He's a strikeout king. I remember that game. I believe it was against I think it was like one of his first starts, his second start actually in a Mariner uniform against the Yankees, obviously, where he fanned almost 9 of them at home. And, that was a great, 1-0, 13-inning crazy game. Ari, you remember that one. But, see, that's what I'm talking about, though. That's what I feel like, Luis Castillo is known for, the fact that he can, strike people out with his 97-mile-an-hour seam that goes high and inside, or, his 2-seam that drops, or, just the filth that he has in his pitching. I like this number for him. That's definitely going to hit for me. And then finally, bring it to me, Ari. Emmanuel Clase's over in saves. Last season, Clase had 42 saves and 77 appearances. I mean, come on. Look, if Edwin Diaz was unfortunately not injured, he'd be the best reliever in baseball right now. But because he is, someone else needs to step up to replace his spot, right? And I feel like Emmanuel Clase is the second best reliever. So therefore, Emmanuel Clase is the best closer in baseball right now. You cannot tell me anyone else is better than this man. He has some of the dirtiest pitches I've ever seen. He has a consistently low ERA, high strikeout rate. He gets the job done. You rarely hear about him blowing save opportunities that much. He consistently is throwing 100 on his fastball. He has a splitter that drops. One of the better pitchers in baseball. This was a guarantee. I got him at 35.5. It's still at 35.5. I feel like that's a low number for someone who got 42 last year in 77 appearances. And yes, it's a team-based one, so they have to be in a situation where Clase has to be, at least 1 run or maybe, 1 or 2 runs, ahead for Cleveland to be in the lead, for him to get that opportunity to get the save, which is hard considering that's a team-dependent one. But at the same time, I feel like Cleveland will be in those a lot because even though their offense got better, I feel like there's still a lot of ifs and maybes about their lineup. Despite the fact that they do have guys like Josh Bell and they got in. They still have Jose Ramirez, who's a dark horse MVP every year. Andres Jimenez, who just signed that big extension with Cleveland. And then obviously they have one of the rookie of the year candidates, Stephen Kwan, out of left field, and I still feel like Emmanuel Clase is one of the better just relievers in this bullpen, and that's why, or just in baseball, and that's why I have him over Saves. I feel like that's definitely a big guarantee, and those are my 5. I don't know if you saw in the corner, but that was pretty much my entry. It was 20 to win 500. I'm calling it the goat whale. It is the MLB goat whale, as Booker would Truman say. Let's ride, boys. Season starts tomorrow. That's the goat whale. You can tail me if you want. I accept contributions as per se. I accept donations. If you do decide to tail and you do win, like I said, this is a full season, boys. So, tomorrow's the first day. Tomorrow's day 1. We have until September 30th or October 1st, whenever the season ends. You don't want to be stressed out on day 1. Okay, it's all about the journey. The destination's gonna get there, but you got to ride the journey. You got to calm down. So if you tail, I appreciate it. But that's mine. Ari?
Yeah, so coincidentally, the 2 props that I like the most that I brought were actually 2 that Korea just talked about. So hopefully that's a good sign, and maybe it's not. But but I like pretty much Corey Seager everything this year. Like Korea mentioned, the ban of the shift is obviously probably one of the biggest rule changes, this year. And last year, Seager led the league in outs recorded that were, hit into the shift. So obviously, like ground outs hit into the shift. And even with that, he still had 145 hits last year. It was obviously, a down year for his standards, signing that big contract in his first year in Texas. But, I mean, he still hit 33 home runs. He only hit 245, which I think does take a step forward, in his second year with the new team, Texas, obviously. So both over 146.5 hits and over 25.5 home runs. I like a lot for Corey Seager this year, and I think he's a dark horse AL MVP this year. I think he could be that good. So that was the first one, and then the other one was the Luis Castillo strikeouts, over 183.5. If you kind of look at his number, and obviously this isn't the best way to go about things every time, but if you look at his K per 9 pitching in Seattle last year after the trade, it was roughly like 12 strikeouts, I believe, per 9 innings. And then even on the road, it was still like in the 8 to 9 range. And Seattle is one of the more pitcher-friendly parks in the league. And if you look on like most books, like DraftKings, FanDuel, his numbers at like 193 in that range. So this is like a 10 strikeout gap, if you want to call it, between Prize Picks and then DraftKings and FanDuel and other books like that. So I just think pitching a full season, say 15 starts in Seattle and 15 on the road, something like that. I think he could easily get 200 plus strikeouts this year. And so those are the 2 I like. A couple of other ones that I kind of thought were interesting. One was Real Muto under home runs, under 19.5, because obviously Philly made the World Series last year, and so that was the most innings he's caught in his career last year, Real Muto. So it's possible that we see him play maybe 20 less games, something like that, and a difference of that could be the difference in a prop like that. That was mostly what I found. Logan Gilbert over strikeouts, I think was interesting because he added a new, I think it was a splitter, I think it was, because last year he's more of a two-pitch pitcher. So adding a third pitch to his arsenal, I think, can make him even more dangerous this year. So over 165 and a half. And then under ERA, I liked Ohtani under 3.1 ERA for, obvious reasons. I think he's going to have, and he's on a contract year too, so that adds to it. Not that he needs that motivation because he's already so good, but it certainly doesn't hurt. So there was that. Those were a handful of props I liked on Prize Picks. So I guess now we can get on to what Korea had on DraftKings for his futures. So we'll get off of that, and then we'll get to the DraftKings. It will show up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Korea's was just all division winners. So I guess if you want to go one by one through your thought process on this.
Yeah, so I pretty much did my division winners. I thought there was a pretty good balance between favors and not favorites. So that's why I definitely was a big favorite of Atlanta right now, especially when I got them. Atlanta was plus 115, and you can see it's already moved a little bit. Obviously, I got it. I believe either it was like right before or right after, or somewhere like in between the Edwin Diaz injury happening and not happening. And that was around that time. And so, Atlanta is still an underdog, right? And I feel like, we saw what happened last year, right? Atlanta was almost out of the water for almost a considerable amount of a considerable amount of the division. It was looking like the Mets were going to just run away with it, and it was the Mets division to lose. Except they did lose because Atlanta won the division last year. And who says that this team is not going to win it again? I feel like they're definitely a dominant squad. The way that from top to bottom, they look so talented. And you don't really see any huge gaps. I mean, you have a talented all-star in Sean Murphy behind the plate. You still have Matt Olson, the guy you signed to a mega deal at first base. You still have Ozzie at second. You bring up Vaughn Grissom to short to replace Dansby Swanson, and then you still have your all-star third baseman in Austin Riley. Your outfield consists of Ronald Acuna Jr., who is definitely an all-star. It consists of Michael Harris, who is also, I just seen this, potentially hitting switch. He's also a switch hitter now. So I feel like any Michael Harris stats are definitely going to be potentially through the roof. That could be really interesting. And then, and then you get into the pitching staff, right? The pitching staff has, Spencer Strider, Max Fried. I feel like when you look at Atlanta from top to bottom, they're almost top 10 in almost every category. And they're still an underdog in their division because somehow DraftKings still sees the Mets potentially as the favorite, I believe, to win the division, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't know why the Phillies would be the favorite in the NL East. And
no, the Braves are the favorite. It's just they're all plus money.
Oh, well, I guess it's just going to be that close. But
yeah.
The Braves are a slight favorite, but it's super close. So it's still plus money on that pretty much that whole division just because of the Edwin Diaz injury playing such a big role. But when I first saw it, the Mets were the favorite. So obviously the Edwin Diaz injury played a big factor in that. So that's definitely interesting to see there. Then I go to Houston. Yes, I know it's Houston Astros. I don't like it either, but look, it's definitely a favorite for a reason. They're the best team in the division. They have the best 1 through 7 in baseball. When you look at Houston's top 7 in the lineup, guys like Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena, Yordan Alvarez, who is actually dealing with an injury, which is affecting his power right now. So that could be interesting. But also Altuve, who was out for 2 months after he broke his thumb, I believe. Alex Bregman. They still have Kyle Tucker. They brought back Brantley. They brought in Jose Abreu. Like, that is a great 1 through 7. They still have some of their starters. Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Lance McCullers. They still have their back. Even without Justin Verlander, there's still going to be a great rotation. And they bring in Hunter Brown up from, their prospect land, and people are saying that he is the next Justin Verlander. So it's basically like they didn't even lose Justin Verlander. They got a younger version, a carbon copy. So I feel like, and then Houston obviously has one of the best bullpens in baseball with Brian Abreu, unfortunately, Rafael Montero, who Mariner fans hate, especially now that he's doing good in Houston. They also have Ryan Presley, who's a top 5 reliever in baseball. You can't argue with the fact that Houston is going to win this division. They're a big favorite for a reason. If something chaotic happens and they lose and the Mariners win, of course I'm not going to be upset. In fact, I'd be joyed. I'd be happy if that happened and it screwed with my parlay here. But that doesn't matter. I still think Houston's going to win this division, unfortunately. But I'm still rooting for the Mariners at the end of the day. Just going with what I believe. San Diego to win the NL West. Why is this plus money, you say? Because it's that close at the top. The Dodgers and Padres, obviously, after their most recent appearance in the NLDS, it really showed that the tide is changing in the NL West. And especially this offseason, too. You look at what the Dodgers not lost, but because they didn't lose that much, but did not gain that much. They lost their star shortstop in Trey Turner. He left. He's going to play in Philly. They bring in via trade Miguel Rojas. Okay. They signed JD Martinez, but is that a significant as a signing when you really think of it in the long term? Because yes, he's going to play DH, obviously, but they also lost Gavin Lux They also lost Gavin Lux, and that's a bad loss. And then they also, they don't have Walker Buehler. He's out for the whole season, obviously with Tommy John. So the Dodgers are unfortunately just not looking like the team that's gonna be dominant as they have been the past 3 years. It's hard for me to say that the Dodgers aren't going to win the division and be a 100-win team, considering that they've been in a 100-win team for the past 3 seasons. They won 106, 106, and 111 games. But San Diego is here to play, and here's why. Even with their semi-decent rotation that did lose guys Sean Manaea, they still have Joe Musgrove, who's a great pitcher. They still have Yu Darvish, who I feel like is a solid pitcher. I feel like this could be a resurgence for Blake Snell, especially since I believe he's on a contract. And, they still have Josh Hader in the bullpen, who's definitely one of the best relievers in baseball. They have one of the best top 4 when, obviously, Fernando Tatis comes back in baseball. Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Xander Bogaerts, and Juan Soto. You cannot tell me that is the most dominant top 4 that you've seen. Tatis, Soto, Bogaerts, Machado. That is actually crazy. And for all of them to be the top 4, that is actually crazy. And it still runs deep too. like it still runs deep. They're still gonna have Ha-Sung Kim playing short, who definitely is a great shortstop in my opinion, and brings great value. They still have Trent Grisham. They still have some of their pieces. They did lose Will Myers, but who's been with that franchise forever. But they definitely got a lot better. And they have money to spend, and they spent it. I mean, considering we saw how much, the contracts that they're paying these guys, Juan Soto is the only guy that has not gotten paid so mega much from San Diego, because Bogarts got paid, Machado got paid, Tatis got paid before he got suspended. So everyone's getting paid. They're just throwing money away. And a team like this in a division where the tides are turning and you can tell, I feel like San Diego at plus 120 is definitely a great steal right there. I definitely see them winning the division, just because of the fact that I don't really see anyone else losing. I don't really see anyone else on that team not trying to win the division. And yes, you can say that the Dodgers have always won the division and it's just going to be the Dodgers division, but we saw what happened in the playoffs, right? We saw what San Diego could do against this team in a full season. And now they got better with Xander Bogaerts, so I feel like that's definitely a steal for the NL West. We move on down to the AL Central and the Cleveland Guardians. Look, this is another one where it's a lot of plus money because they don't really know who's going to win. I got it when it was Cleveland Guardians plus 135, so it moved up only 5, so it's not that much in terms of odds, but still. They feel like the AL Central is definitely going to be a very close division, and you can arguably say that with the top 3 teams all honestly being kind of mid. Let's be real here. The definition of mid, aka the Chicago White Sox, I feel like it's boom or bust for them. With guys like Andrew Vaughn, Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, if injuries don't riddle this team, I don't know when it is going to be for them. They did lose. Obviously, they did lose Jose Abreu, right? That was a big bat for them. And I don't feel like, but they still have a chance because they still have Dylan Cease, who's an AL Cy Young candidate. So, and obviously, hopefully, Liam Hendricks. We don't know his situation with his situation, but hopefully he can play baseball again. That's the hope right there. And then Minnesota, I feel like, is the only other team that's in consideration with Cleveland because Minnesota actually did get better this offseason. They traded for some key guys. They retained somehow. They got Carlos Correa in the Giants-Mets fiasco. He somehow returned to Minnesota. If Byron Buxton stays healthy, that's the only thing. If Byron Buxton stays healthy, the bats are still there. They traded for Pablo Lopez. He's definitely going to be their ace, even though they had to get rid of Arias, who I feel like that's definitely a smarter move, getting rid of Arias and like someone else that's worth maybe a little bit more. And then you look at what Cleveland has done, right? Cleveland has retained most of that team that went to the playoffs last year. They brought in what they needed in Josh Bell. They needed a bat, especially a switch hitting bat who can hit the ball hard. They brought in Mike Zunino, who Mariner fans know for his boomer bust days where, it's either him hitting it out the ballpark or him looking at strike 3. No in between with that man. And you still have a dominant rotation of guys like Cal Quantrill, Shane Bieber, who's going to be their opening day starter. They still have a great rotation, right? And they have Carter Chapman.
They did lose McKenzie for like 2 months, which is a big blow. But
yeah, that I forgot. I knew like they just lost someone. They just lost McKenzie. For about a couple months. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be like Jose Altuve, obviously with the Astros. It's definitely gonna be rough, but it's not the whole season. So hopefully his rehab is fast enough to where he can return, obviously. But that's definitely going to be a loss for now for Cleveland. But it's not at the end of the season; that's at the beginning of the season, and the season does not end until September. So I definitely feel like the Guardians will still come out of this division winning this once again. We scroll down one more to the NL Central, and I feel like that is the weakest division, and I feel like that's why the Cardinals are the favorites in the weakest division. The Cardinals did not get extremely, extremely better this offseason. They maintained the same guys that they were scared of losing. Obviously, Arenado was a big name that was potentially opting out, but pretty much as soon as the season ended for them, he opted back in, and he is not leaving. They still have a very deep outfield with guys like O'Neill and Carlson, Lars Nootbaar, and all the depth that they have at outfield. They have a great shortstop in Tommy Edman. I feel like they definitely have a lot of depth in the rotation, and then obviously they have one of the stronger bullpens with Ryan Helsley, who is one of the best relievers in baseball. Their starting rotation is definitely one of the bigger concerns because they're going with Mike Mikolas as their starting pitcher for opening day. Mike Mikolas, sorry. We ain't talking about Aaron. No, we're talking about Mike Mikolas. Oh, brother. So that's why I'm a little scared about St. Louis, but in a division where it's very, very top heavy, obviously the Reds and Pirates, no disrespect to them, but they're not going to be good next year. The Reds and Pirates are going to be absolutely horrible. And then obviously I feel like this Chicago Cubs team is just overrated. And then you look at the you look at the Brewers, right? And the Brewers are fun. Obviously the only problem is that I feel like they're going to be a team that's selling at the deadline. And then that just kind of clears the path for St. Louis to win this division. And then finally, we get to my final prop, and it's the Yankees to win the AL East. Look, I'm not a Yankees fan, but I cannot stand the Toronto Blue Jays. I cannot stand it. I don't say this because I don't wish harm to anyone, but I hope and pray that the Blue Jays season goes up in shambles. I really do. I actually hope it does because their fans are so obnoxious and annoying, and I don't care if they're seeing this right now. Very, very flamboyant fan base, as I like to say. And they've gotten so cocky that they actually think that they're going to beat the Yankees. Now, the Yankees are shooting themselves in the own foot right now. Why? Because Carlos Rodon is out for a long time. The injuries are starting to pile up. Now, there is a lot of excitement about Anthony Volpe. I will say that. There was a lot of excitement there. And there is a good reason to be because he was absolutely raking in spring training. And he's been the guy that the Yankee fans have been talking about, being the next Jeter or, just him being the next guy, at the shortstop position. So this may be a risk because the AL East, obviously, as we know, one of the better divisions in baseball, with teams like the Red Sox, who I don't know what to think of the Red Sox this year. This is a boomer bust year. This is either everything will go right or everything will go wrong because they did lose Xander Bogaerts. And then the Orioles, for God's sakes, this team had such a great opportunity to get better. They're sending out Kyle Gibson on opening day. And then, look, the Rays, I feel like when they are healthy, are one of the best teams in baseball. But they're playing behind the Jays, who definitely got better this offseason. I'm not going to deny that. They traded for Varsho. They also signed Chris Bassett. They may have high expectations for Jose Barrios next year. And then obviously the Yankees, who have been kings of the division, for so long. And as you look at the AL East right now, right, and you look at the season-long props to win the division, right, and it's really close between the Yankees, the Jays, and the Rays. Obviously, the Yankees are a slight favorite right now, but the Jays plus 200 is definitely a steal right there for everyone that believes in Toronto. And then Tampa Bay. Obviously, they've definitely been a solid team without a doubt. They have high expectations for guys like Wander Franco and pretty much most of their young core. Also, along with their lineup to really kind of carry them into the playoffs once again. But I have the Yankees at plus 130. I just feel like the Yankees. Yes, they're a slight favorite. But they're a slight favorite for a reason because they just know how to get it done. I feel like they're the regular season champs, and this is no shade to Yankee fans, but I mean they haven't been a World Series since 2009. I mean, my God, you're talking about regular season champs right there. I mean, just amazing in the regular season, but can't do anything in the postseason. So I have the Yankees winning the AL East. Sorry.
Yeah, so the only one that I know I disagree with is I still have the Dodgers in the NL West. My worry with the Padres, obviously their offense on paper is arguably the best. Arguably the best in the whole MLB, but just the inconsistency of the starting rotation is my biggest worry with the Padres. If Darvish and Snell are at their best, then they're both can go 7 shutout, but they can also give up 7 runs in a start any given, like every other outing or whatever. So that's just my biggest concern. And their bullpen, obviously Hader was super inconsistent last year as well himself. So I mean, if he can bounce back, that would be big for them, in that 9th inning role. But the depth of the bullpen and like outside of Hader is also my other kind of concern with the Padres. So. I mean, the Dodgers, I agree they're not going to be like the vaunted 110 win team most likely again this year. Like it's going to be definitely going to be closer. But I still lean towards the Dodgers in that division, and then the AL East. I'm not like I lean Toronto, but I'm not 100%. That's not a division I'm betting on. I can just say. I mean, the Yankees are already dealing with injuries to Rodon, Severino. Montas is out for the whole year, half the year. We don't really know. Obviously, it's still early, so in a way, it's better to have the injuries now than mid to late in the season. But, I mean, Severino's been dealing with these injuries basically his whole career, unfortunately, so that's obviously a concern. And Rodon, I don't think he has that much of an injury history, but just already having all these injuries is not a good thing. I know a certain team in the Pacific Northwest that might have some depth in the starting rotation that they could make a trade, but I'm not sure if that will happen or not. But that's an idea. But other than that, I agree with you with the Braves and NL East, the Cardinals, the Guardians, and the Astros. So that's that for regular season wins. One of the teams I like the over on or the under was the Rockies at under 65.5. I think that obviously the Nationals and the A's are at the bottom of the league. I think the Rockies might be right down there with them. They might have, I think, over 100 losses this year, the Rockies. So I like that under. And then I also liked the Angels and the Rangers are two just tough teams to judge because I feel like where they're priced at, you have the Angels are at 82.5 and the Rangers are within a game of that. Let's see where they're 82. So they're both at 82.5. And I kind of lean towards the under for both of them just because I feel like everything has to go right for both of them to kind of hit that over. So I think it's possible that one of them goes over, one goes under, but I'm not taking the over on both of them, that's for sure. And then the Mariners were at 87.5, and they've won 90 plus back to back. So I definitely lean the over for the Mariners there. And then when you look at the odds to win the AL NL, obviously the Astros are at the top, and then the Yankees. You have the Mariners at plus 900, Jays at plus 650. I feel like that kind of like maybe the top 6 is where you get to like it's going to be one of those top 6. You feel like from the Astros down to the Guardians in there. And then the NL, you have the Braves at the top. Normally the Dodgers are the clear favorite in the NL most years, so that's a change. Like we were saying, they're not going to be as dominant, and that's kind of shown here, and that they're not the favorite to even get to the World Series. With the Braves being the favorites, Dodgers, Padres, Mets. I think the Mets were 2 or 3 before the Diaz injury. Then you have the Cardinals, Phillies. Curry, do you have like any kind of like value leans to get to the World Series here in the AL or NL?
Yeah, I mean, if I was gonna lean, if anything, I would lean more to the NL. I mean, obviously, for the AL, it's just kind of more dominant with Houston. For the NL, I kind of like San Diego. Was at plus 475. Obviously, you're not the biggest proponent of San Diego. I feel like they're just getting better and better. The tides are turning. I feel like them plus 475 to win the NL pennant is definitely a sneaky play right there. I feel like they definitely can make the World Series, and I feel like they can win the World Series. And that's not if everything goes right. I feel like if they just make some more moves to booster their rotation, maybe at the deadline with a frustrated pitcher or two, who's not liking their situation and they want to go to a championship contending team. Maybe San Diego starts to play there because they're definitely in the market, and they're always going to be in the market. So I feel like San Diego at plus 475 is definitely some great value right there. I definitely would say for the American League, this look that this is a home one. So I don't advise putting so much money on this, but Seattle Mariners plus 900 are, I don't know about you, but that's looking mighty interesting. If I was in a legal state right now, I'd put some money in Prize Picks or DraftKings and put Mariners plus 900 to win the AL pennant. I don't know. I feel like this Mariners team, if I'm not going to say if everything goes right, but just throughout the season, if just nothing goes wrong, really, and nothing really has gone wrong, considering this team has won 90 games in back-to-back seasons, then I feel like this team can definitely win the pennant, right? And I feel like plus 900 is definitely a little high, considering this Mariners team was one pitch away from beating the Astros in Game 1, maybe an inning or two against them in Game 2, and then we all know the 18-inning thriller in Game 3. So, and you ask, some Astros fans are like, the Mariners have Houston's number almost. They almost have Houston's number, and I feel like it's just getting closer and closer. So that may be, you're just a Mariners fan. I don't know why you're doing that. Houston's gonna win the pennant, but there's some value there. I'm being real. There's some value there. I feel like this Mariners team is being overlooked. I feel like they're definitely one of the better teams in the American League, and plus 900 could be really interesting for a team that is just only getting better. And I feel like has one of the best lineups and, definitely a top 5 rotation and bullpen. So those are my favorites out of each league right now.
Yes, I think that will do it for our talk on kind of the features and stuff. So I guess we can kind of close looking at opening day tomorrow and some of the lines that we're looking at for tomorrow. So let's go here. So we have the 2 games at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific time, opening this up with the Giants, Yankees, and the Braves, Nationals. If we're looking at the Nerfies in those two games. It's minus 150 in the Yankees game and minus 130 in the Nationals. And it's always, scary to bet a Nerfie in Yankee Stadium and when Patrick Corbin's on the mound for the Nationals. So I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of people betting those just for the culture, just because it's opening day and it's the first games. But maybe there's some value in the Yerfie. It might not be as fun as a Nerfie, but there could be some value in the Yerfie in at least one of those two games. But we got Webb, Cole. We've got Burns on the mound for the Brewers, McClanahan. We have Aaron Nola against DeGrom, Marquez against Snell, Scherzer, Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Zach Greinke, Manoah, Mikolas. We got Cease and Valdez, Ohtani on the mound, Gallen, Urias, Bieber, Castillo. So we have at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 really good, pitching matchups on both sides. Career, does anything stand out to you from what you're kind of seeing right now?
Yeah, so you go back up to those first two games as you were talking about, the Giants and Yankees and, the Braves and Nats. And, I hate to say it, but the Yerfie is hitting them both already. The Yerfie is hitting them both. Garrett Cole, the master at giving up first run homers. I mean, we saw it last year on opening day, and then the Mariners play him, and it was almost like the home run derby for him. And shout out to the Giants and Arson Judge, getting his payback against Aaron Judge in their first meeting. What a great story. Arson versus Aaron, which Judge is going to win. And then just with Patrick Corbin, right? He is so bad, right, that I feel like the Yerfie has to be a favorite, right? You look at the Braves just lineup, and those guys can hit the ball. Ronald Acuna, that guy, who can run the bases pretty fast and he can hit 440. Yeah, they have Ozzy Albies. They have Austin Riley, who's a consistent hitter. They have Matt Olson, who's good on the base, who can hit homers. I feel like the Yerfie has to hit. So I like those two for Yerfies. In terms of Nerfies, if you're scrolling, keep scrolling down a little more.
Here, I'll just go to the lines.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. Yeah, so I like the Yerfies in the first two games of the day tomorrow. I like the Nerfies in the Philly-Texas game. I just feel like those are two aces going against lineups that are not as strong anymore, considering you have
minus 170.
Yeah, I mean that's a steal, obviously. So they just know that you're facing against two Cy Young level caliber pitchers against weaker lineups than what they should be, in terms of one being injured and the other just not being a decent lineup against a good pitcher. So I like that one as well. One that is interesting, I feel like could definitely hit the last game of the day, the Mariners and the Guardians. I like that Nerfie especially just because it's Bieber, who is pretty dominant throughout the beginning part of his starts, and then Luis Castillo. And I feel like Luis Castillo, I've been hyping him up all season, but I just feel like he's definitely going to be one of the better pitchers in the American League. And I feel like I definitely like that Nerfie as well for starting for tomorrow, for opening day tomorrow. I also like whoever's pitching in that. I forgot who the Mets are playing.
The Marlins.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Hammer the Mets. I don't usually say that, but I mean, for goodness sakes, that Nerfie is going to be the obvious Nerfie. It's Scherzer versus Alcantara, for God's sakes.
It's minus 185, so it's the most juiced, obviously, of the day.
It's just because you have two starters that are Cy Young pitchers. You have one who has won the Cy Young before, and the one who is the reigning NL Cy Young. So I believe that is the most obvious one. But I like the Yurfie in the first 2 games. I just feel like Patrick Corbin is a run giver. If you need a run, Patrick Corbin will give it to you. And Garrett Cole in the first inning, he is very generous as well. He loves to give up some runs. So I feel like those are Yurfies that I would be taking.
Yeah, it's definitely, and they're both plus money, so it could be a nice way to start the MLB season. So maybe there could be some value in the Giants just outright plus 155 if Garrett Cole does get lit up. But the Giants offense is, average at best. Yeah, I think I would say so. And then there's some that think Logan Webb could have some kind of regression on the mound. So we'll see if that happens against, starting against a tough Yankees lineup that is, a little bit banged up, but it's mostly the rotation that's banged up. So the lineup is mostly healthy. And then, Angels, I think Angels minus 1.5 is going to be popular, obviously, with Ohtani against the A's, even though Ohtani did struggle a little bit, strangely enough, on the road against the A's last year. But still, Kyle Muller against Ohtani, you think the Angels are going to win by 2+, but you think the Angels are going to make the playoffs with Trout and Ohtani, and that doesn't happen. So there's never a guarantee with the Angels, obviously.
The Angels! Oh, they're a team to never guarantee anything about. Let me tell you right now.
Did you see that they're not even setting the radio broadcasters on the road games? Like it's like
Artie Moreno, ladies and gentlemen. Artie Moreno, ladies and gentlemen.
But yeah, so we have the 2 games in the morning in the first 2 games at 1 Eastern, and then we have a couple games at 2 Eastern, 1 at 3 Eastern. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at 4 Eastern, and then we have the 1 at 7 Eastern and 3 at 10 Eastern. So a pretty good opening day slate, with games kind of spread out all throughout the day. So I think that will do it for today's episode of going over opening day and MLB season and all of that. We'll likely be recording next on Friday, where we'll go more in depth on the Final Four, with that coming up on Saturday. Kind of going in depth on each of the 2 matchups for the Final Four and our predictions on what we like in those 2 games. But yeah, so that'll do it for today. Thank you all for watching, and we will catch you all on Friday.